Suzanne. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Brittany. Thanks so much for having me today.
Yeah, this is really awesome. I don't think we've had a foundation on yet, so this kind of a big deal for me. I'm really excited.
Well, I'm really honored to be your first foundation on the podcast. But no, I'm very excited to be here, and I hope that everybody who's listening is intrigued and interested as to why I'm here.
I was very, very excited when we got connected, and I noticed that Livestrong is in Austin.
We are neighbors.
That.
We are. Yeah, we've been here since the beginning. Wow. And 24 years, but we have never just operated locally. We happen to be here, but we operate globally. Cool. And different iterations throughout the years, just like any company, moves and shifts and changes depending on what's happening in the universe. But we are very proud to call Austin home, and we've invested locally, definitely heavier, right, than in other areas, because it's home to us.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait for the pandemic to lift and we can see each other in person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm ready for, even if it's just socially distanced coffee. Yeah. It's great to see. It's great to see how tall you are. I have no idea how tall anybody is. Right?
Yes,
no perspective.
True. No perspective. That's right.
No.
Well, we always love to kick off our interviews with learning about our guest's background. We want to get to know you personally. So where are you from? What did you study? And how did you end up here running the programs at Livestrong?
Well, it's, I think a lot of women's journeys are not in a straight line. Mm-hmm. And they're often defined by what happens to us, as opposed to actions we necessarily intend on taking. Mm-hmm. I say this because my journey, just like many, started out in one direction and ended in another, mostly because I was seeking to definitely always make an impact. And I love, I'm a caretaker, like many of us. Mm-hmm. Females are, I'm a caretaker, and that started driving kind of what I did and drove a lot of the decisions that I made. So I grew up, actually, I'm a Southern girl by birth. I was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And then my family moved to Washington, D.C. when I was 5.
Okay.
So I really grew up in the district and just outside of the district, but politics was a big piece of what my growing up was like. I did not know that the entire world didn't look like my world. Yeah. Now everybody can say that, right?
Yep.
My best friend was from Vietnam. Like her parents, she's first generation. She was born in Vietnam, but my best friend was from Vietnam. My neighbors were from Sweden, Bangladesh, Ecuador. When I went to school, I went to public school, and we never celebrated religious holidays, because we had
many,
every religion known to man in my school. And so,
wow.
Right. And so this is, and I'm going to go ahead and age myself. I'm 50 years old, or 50 years young. Mm-hmm. And so this was back again, this is back when we were all celebrating Christmas break, right? Mm-hmm. And you would have Easter break. Well, not where I grew up. Wow. So when, I'm also have a little bit of wanderlust somehow inside of me. And so when it was time for me to leave home, I left. And I went to Texas, because it's as far as my father would allow me. And so, because obviously this was before cell phones and the internet and all of those things. And he knew what would happen probably if I got too far. So anyway, they said Texas was as far as I could go, because it was next door to Louisiana. That's why it's important to know that piece of my story. So I convinced him, and I went to Texas Christian University. So I'm a Horned Frog, bleed purple still. I graduated from there with a degree, a bachelor's degree in radio, television, and film production.
Okay.
So I again, I'll keep dating myself, but for those of you who remember watching Jane Pauley on the Today Show, I was in. I was like, I'm going to be her. I'm going to be Jane Pauley. She's now the host of CBS Sunday Morning, which is another fantastic show. I could keep going on. And Charles Kuralt, another big favorite. Anyway. So journalism and photography were really my things. I really loved this idea of telling stories. What I didn't understand at that point, how that love of telling stories and that love of pictures would really translate well into what I ended up doing for my life.
Yeah.
So I graduated from TCU and I went right into the television and film industry. I worked in there for 6 years and I had a great time. I truly did. I lived in Dallas, worked in Dallas for a while, and then moved to Chicago as well. And when I moved to Chicago, what I realized was there's some things that you have to do in the television industry to get ahead that I just wasn't prepared to do. Yeah. And I just, that's a whole podcast, but I decided that, there's got to be another thing. There has to be another thing. So because television was all I knew at that time, and I was in Chicago, I have no family anywhere in any of these places that I'm talking about. This is literally just me. And so in Chicago, I decided, well, television is all I know. And so I ended up going to work for a public access television station. And this is the first time I was introduced to what nonprofit work is. Public access is the mother of YouTube. So if you go back, and so way back in the day, if you look it up, it's really a fascinating story, I think. So cable was this brand new thing that was happening. And the FCC was really concerned, and they were totally convinced actually that the cable companies were going to come into these small communities and dictate what channels people were going to be able to see, thus controlling what content everybody got. Yeah. So the rule was, so the FCC said, because they, we didn't know, nobody knew what this marketplace was going to look like. So the FCC said, you can come in, but you're going to have to create free stations with access to the community so they can put on whatever content they want at no cost to them. In fact, you have to foot the bill. So they had to create a government access channel, an education access channel, and a public access channel. So that is Wayne's World. If you go to Saturday Night Live and you ever see old YouTube, Wayne's World, that is public access.
Okay.
And so this is what we did is I got hired. I was not only fixing VCRs, which I know don't even exist today, but I was I was fixing VCRs and putting content on the air. But the most exciting part that I was doing was community members would come to us and they would say, hey, I want to start a show about, I want to teach people how to knit. And so I want to start a show like that. Yeah. So you can imagine today, you just like pick up your phone, right? Yeah, why is that hard? No, but back then we didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
So they came into the studio. I taught them all about production. I taught them how to use cameras. They learned, they had their own crews set up. It was super cool. And then they produced their own shows and I put them on the air for free.
Wow.
And this is what happened. I will never forget this one day, a woman walks into the studio who I taught and I knew, and she says, Suzanne, I just have to tell you, you've changed my life. And I'm like, I'm not even 30. And I'm like, I haven't changed anything. What are you talking about? How could I have changed your life? And she's like, well, you taught me how to do this. I have my own show. And now I have so much business because I think it was quilting that she was doing. I have so much business that it's changed my life. I can quit my other job and just do this.
Aww.
And that feeling of helping somebody for no personal gain, I mean, it was just my job.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I could use a skill that I had that I didn't even realize at the time, because youth, is young, right? Age, youth is wasted on the young. I had no understanding of, I was like, wow, I didn't know that I really knew how to do those. I mean, I knew how to do those things, but I didn't know that they were valuable skills to other people.
Yeah.
So I know that's a long backstory, but that's how I got started in nonprofit. And so I was hooked on this feeling and this idea of impacting others through the ability to tell stories. And that's what I learned how to do.
Mm.
And so it's driven a lot of my, that drove really the rest of my 20s and 30s. I moved to New York and I ran a public access station there as well. As we all know, nonprofits don't pay the bills. And so I needed another full-time job as well.
Wow.
And so I took on the role of head women's basketball coach for a small college in upstate New York at the same time. So I worked, it was great. So I worked during the day. I was the executive director of a public access station. And in the afternoon and evenings, I was the head coach of a women's basketball team.
Wow. I mean, you got to love helping people in order to work 2 jobs, right?
Oh yeah. And also there's the need to eat, but yes, no, I really love, I love connecting with people in that way, right? I don't think that I have anything super special. It's just when you invest time and just a little bit of time into listening to what is happening in other people's lives. I can't fix what's happening in your life. But sometimes it's just the listening and then connecting with a solution and which kind of goes back to ultimately where I've ended up here at Livestrong. But so I loved my kids, my girls, my women. I drove the bus. I coached. Oh yeah, I did it all. I drove the bus.
That's awesome. It's very.
I had my. Oh yeah, I had my son. Yeah, it's like a movie. I had my son when I was coaching and still doing the access station. And so during the day he was in the pack and play in my office, and then in the evenings I put him in my baby Bjorn. It's like the front facing backpack thing. And so my kid is like, he literally is. I'm running around the court and he's on the front of me. It's it's great stuff. It was a lot of fun. So that's really how I got my start in nonprofit. And after leaving leaving New York, I had a couple of pit stops along the way, but I made my way back to Texas, and I've worked for nonprofits like CASA, Children's Miracle Network, an education foundation, Susan G. Komen, and now here at Livestrong as the Chief Strategic Solutions and Programs Officer.
Oh my goodness. Such a cool story, of like you realized something that sparked your heart, and your energy and you continued to follow it. And yeah, most people, we always talk to everyone about what's your background, because almost no one said, yeah, in kindergarten, I said I was going to work in FemTech, right? Like that's not.
I'm going to code. Story. Yeah, so, that's not what they're
somehow
saying.
End up here.
Right. Right.
So, when I think of Livestrong, I think of the yellow bracelet, right? But you got it on. She's got
always
thing. Yes. And so, tell us though, for we have international listeners.
Right.
What is Livestrong? What is it originally? Because I know you also have evolved. So tell us a little bit more about what Livestrong's up to.
Sure, absolutely. So, Livestrong began, and most people who are familiar with Livestrong, and depending on kind of your age group, that's really like what you know about Livestrong, right? So Livestrong began, with Lance Armstrong, and he had prostate cancer. He wanted to do something and give back, and he started the Livestrong Foundation. We were wildly successful because of him, because of his name, right? And even at the beginning and since the beginning, it has always been about the patient and putting the person at the center of everything that we do. We're not about curing cancer. We've never been about curing cancer. That is not something that's necessarily interesting to us, only because other people are doing it.
Yeah.
Right. One of the things we don't want to do is duplicate services. So we've always been about the quality of life for the person whose journey is affected by cancer. Whether that's the patient or the caregiver or the healthcare worker or the child or whoever that is, we're really about the quality of life. So 24 years ago, that's how that began. In 2012, Lance left the organization and the organization left Lance. So He has not been a part of the organization since then, and isn't today. I think that's one thing that I definitely want people to know. Whether you are a Lance Armstrong fan or you're not a Lance Armstrong fan, it doesn't matter to me. One, I'm grateful that he created this organization.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be here without that creation. Okay. At the same time, I think it's really important to acknowledge and for everybody to understand that he's gone one direction, we've gone another direction. And so when we talk about evolution, just like in any business, right? We had to evolve when it became very clear that it was time for us to do so. And so we parted ways with Lance. And honestly, I will say that if you look back at the history and what we've been able to do, we have made more impact just in these past 8 years than we did, in the first 12. So we've really made a huge impact on cancer patients. So the evolution.
Really quickly, listeners, if you're struggling with your company right now, let's say there's something, you're having a co-founder conflict or a business issue, or, there's a bad PR thing about your company, you think it's the end, it may not just be the beginning of, the evolution of your company. So if you feel discouraged, Livestrong has done some of their best work in the last 8 years after some big controversy. So if you're out there wondering, is this the end of my company? It may also be the beginning. Just want to throw that out there for our listeners.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think in the face of challenge like this, because it continues to be a challenge for us. I think when we are faced with things in our companies or organizations that become profoundly difficult, you have a couple of choices, just like you do in your life, right? You either bow to that, close the doors, delete your Twitter account, and
barricade the door,
barricade the doors, and move to Guatemala, or change your last name, whatever, or you say, hey, you know what? Perfection isn't something that any of us. We're not perfect humans. We're not, and so you own the mistake, or you own the evolution, and you say, again, whether or not. No matter what that crisis is, my belief is, right, in that leadership role, you have the obligation to say to everybody who's invested in you, whether that's just with their time or their money or both, to say, hey, this isn't over. We got this. Let's look at what we have, and let's look at this as an opportunity, and how do we grow from it, move from it. But I think ownership of the past and not dwelling in the past is important. That's just my thought. At Livestrong, I will say, just for us specifically, we didn't do anything. We did not do anything wrong. We were never doing anything wrong. But you become guilty by association. With somebody who did make some choices that, whether you believe that they were wrong or right, were controversial. And caused a lot of turmoil, and they caused damage, collateral damage. The organization and anybody who's listening also going through this, right? The organization rarely does something actually wrong. There's probably one person who made a bad choice. So own it. And
look forward. And
let's keep going. Let's keep going. Yeah. So
that kind of reminds me of your mission, because a lot of your quality of life stuff is post cancer,
very much so,
life, right? So let's talk. Tell us more about why is that important, or who else is working on it? Tell us about.
So when our mission is a mission question as opposed to a mission statement. Our mission question is what everyday cancer problem will we fix today?
Oh, I love that.
And so that's what we're looking for. And so every morning when I wake up, it's about the problem. That's what's written at the top of my pages. How do I stop the chaos? What can I do to improve somebody's quality of life today? And that's what Livestrong is about. So we're an impact funder. We do not pretend to be the expert in anything, but what we are the leader in finding those solutions. We find the friction points, and then I'm going to go find the person or the group or the organization that that can fix that friction, whether that's through systems change or it's treatment care or systems, whatever it could be.
It's a product, it's a treatment, it's a lifestyle, it's a service, something.
Absolutely, whatever it is. And so when you go to livestrong.org, what I can promise you is that you're not going to find things that you're going to Google, right? When you get diagnosed with cancer, or you have a friend who has cancer, the first thing that happens is you start Googling and you look and you read craziness. There's craziness. We all know that, right?
Yeah.
We all know there's nuts stuff out there, but what we are is that trusted resource that you can rely on. If it's on our website, it is truth, and it's truth backed by scientific fact. It's not politically motivated. I don't really care what anybody, this is solid scientific fact. And so that's what you can find. So you can take a deep breath and go, okay, the information that I know that I'm reading about is real. And then we're going to point you to resources or solutions to fix it, to make your everyday just a little bit better, because some of the problems that happen because of cancer, frankly, they don't deserve to exist. And they've existed for way too long. Yeah.
What are the main types of cancer that affect women? Let's speak about the United States, because I'm sure every country has different statistics, and I wish I could talk to you all day on record, but we got.
I know, we've got time.
We got time now, but tell us about some of the cancers that affect women specifically.
Sure. So I think there are a few that really come to mind that are specific to women. Breast cancer is the most obvious choice, or perhaps maybe the most obvious choice, but breast cancer is definitely a big one. And then lung cancer also affects women at a high rate, and obviously ovarian cancer, as well as uterine cancer. So these are pieces of the body that guys don't have.
Yep.
So obviously they're unique to us.
Solely female.
Solely female. Yeah, solely female. And so it's also, so here I'll put, I don't have to put the woman hat on because that's who I am. But I will say, when you look at statistics, and I could, and you can go and Google and look at the statistics all day long. I will say the American Cancer Society has some really great stat resources. So if you're a data person, if you love Excel spreadsheets, then they always put out some really great statistics and great content. So I encourage you to, really take a look and do a deeper dive, because you could literally have spend your day digging into those reports if those are the things that interest you. But if you look at the survivorship and the survival rate for prostate cancer versus the survival rate for breast cancer, it's striking.
What do you mean?
Striking.
Tell me.
So prostate cancer, when you obviously only men have prostates, the survival rate for prostate cancer is 99%.
What? Okay. That's like
99%.
I can't believe 99%.
It's like, it's like a so, right. So I'm not minimizing prostate cancer, because I've actually recently, in the last couple of years, lost somebody that I know to prostate cancer. But the reason that he passed away from prostate cancer was because he chose not to treat it, because he chose to bury his head in the sand and say, oh, well, it'll go away. I don't want anybody messing with me. I'm not going to talk about that. Very guy thing, right? And so he lost his battle because he actually never
went to
battled.
No,
he didn't. So I'm going to say that. And then let's talk about breast cancer. So 1 in 8 women will get breast cancer.
Wow.
If you catch breast cancer between stage 0, and that's a stage 0 and 2, 0, 1, and 2, your 5-year survival rate is 99%.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Stage 3 and later drops to 60%.
Wow. And that's only 5 years, right? It's not.
That's just 5 years. And
I want our listeners to know, if we have a lot of poli-sci majors that listen, sociologists. We have I have a bunch of farmer friends in New Hampshire that listen too. So when you have cancer and then you have cancer treatment, you go into what is called remission. So you are never actually cured of cancer. You are just in a hiatus from cancer, and it can come back at any moment. So when she said, Suzanne says 5-year, you know, it's because there's this expectation that you still have cancer. You're just like in this sabbatical of
Correct.
having a giant tumor. So
yeah, and it's very possible that it never comes back.
Yeah.
Certainly, it's very possible. Certainly, it's possible that you jump off, you go skydiving and that doesn't work out for you, or there's some other thing that is your last day.
Yeah.
But I will say this: when you are definitely working in the cancer field, we never say cancer free.
Yeah.
But if you have cancer, a lot of people do, and that is up to you.
Yeah.
Like that,
okay.
if that language, I believe, is personal and it's individual. Some people call themselves survivors. Some people call themselves fighters or thrivers or warriors or whatever you want to call yourself. This journey is deeply personal.
Yeah.
And so I definitely don't want anybody who's listening today to think that we prescribe how you should feel, right? Or how
cancer-free,
how you should,
not true.
Right? This is not true.
Whatever you
want. Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I know women who've gone, I know many women, right, who've been through one cancer journey, and they went through treatment, they rang their bell, and it's been decades.
Yeah.
At the same time, we have a team member here on staff who's in her 4th battle.
Mm-hmm.
She has been diagnosed 4 times with 4 different types of cancer. Yeah. So, I think it's and that really speaks to the challenge in cancer, because everybody's journey is so unique.
Yes.
If knock on wood, we're not going to ever get this, but if you and I both were to get breast cancer, and the exact same kind, HER2 positive, right? Let's just say, the way it acts in you is going to be very different than the way it acts in me.
Yeah.
And it's because we are all individuals. So when we talk about, cancer and how it affects women specifically, the way we can change the things that we do and the way we change those outcomes is by taking care of ourselves, putting ourselves first, and going to get screened. I cannot say that loud enough and shout it from the rooftops. There are ways to detect this before it kills you, but you have to go. You cannot, we do this all the time as women, right? We put everybody else, our family, our boyfriends, our parents, the dog, whatever, in front
as I look up at my dogs.
Hey, yeah, right. The dog, not the cat, because I have a cat, but she doesn't care what's happening, right? So she's like, whatever, you're here, you're not here, it's irrelevant to me. But I really encourage everybody, we have you have to take control not only of your business, but you have to take control of your personal health, and that's a deal. We have always made accommodations for men to do that, right? They have done that. Heart disease, prostate cancer, we're going to take care of that. We got to look at that. We got to look at that, because historically, right? And I think it's that unconscious bias piece again, right? If you were a male doctor and that's who we all went to for I don't remember going to see a female doctor until I was over the age of 30.
Wow.
For anything.
Yeah.
Because there were not female doctors for me to go to.
Yeah.
Right. So if men are running the show, what are they going to be most interested in? Well, they're most interested in themselves being healthy. And so that trickles down. And so I really encourage every woman who's listening today, and if they're men listening today, I encourage you to talk to all the women in your life and say, you need to be getting screened, mammograms, but you also need to know your family history. Mm-hmm. Did anybody else in your family die of cancer on your mom's side, on the women's side? You need to know that. You need to know what kind of cancer it was. And you need to be proactive, and you need to talk to your doctor so that you can get the screenings you need. Because when we screen, we find it. We may not be able to stop it yet, but there's a big difference between stage 1 and stage 4.
Yeah, our diagnostics are fantastic, right?
They are.
That we're still researching and working on. So that you said in the beginning of this, like there's this difference between survival rates for men prostate cancer and, women's breast cancer. Do you think that it's because breasts are more complicated than prostates? Is it because men get checked earlier than women get checked? Or do you have any data or hypothesis around that?
Sure. So my hypothesis is simply that, again, kind of going back to historical things, we weren't focused on the mammogram we haven't changed the mammogram in over 20 years. It's the same technology that we used 20 years ago. Right.
I didn't even have Facebook 20 years ago. Things have changed.
Yeah. Yeah. I still have my AOL account from 1988 and I'm not giving it up because my name at AOL, like who can get that? Nobody can get that. Right. Things have changed since AOL. Yeah. And so the mammogram that my mother got is the same mammogram that I'm getting.
Wow.
Prostate screening has evolved.
Okay.
It's evolved because the people who were in charge of, who had access, and I'm not man bashing.
We never man bash on here. We love you men. We want you involved.
I love you. Yeah. Yes, we do. We love you.
Yeah.
But you should do your own laundry. So I think that what we're looking at really is it's a historical unconscious bias.
Yeah.
That's really all this is.
Yeah.
So now we have this opportunity. So all of you women in tech, when we talk about what you could do to change the planet, to make an impact, change the mammogram. We've got 3D imaging now, which is great. And it's much better, but there has to be a better way.
Yes.
I know there's a better way. I don't know what it is because I am not a scientist, but if Elon Musk can land a rocket, if we can on a boat in the ocean
and reuse it, yeah. If he can do that,
how come we can't?
We can scan movies better. All right, come on.
So things like this. I had to have surgery in my eardrum. It doesn't matter, but my eardrum, as my ENT calls it, was jacked up. Okay. So I was like, that's official. Should I write that down?
Yeah.
So he had to rebuild me a new eardrum.
Okay.
Brittany, he built me an eardrum. What is that?
Yeah. That's like,
you can, in your ear. I mean, like what? So I wake up from surgery and he says, I ended up having to build you a new eardrum. I don't even understand what you just said. Yeah. What? So we're able to do this amazing stuff. And I'm saying, you want to change the world, you want to change women's health, not even just cancer related, but really, I think if we look into screening technology, not just for breast cancer, but all forms of cancer, like the pap smear, seriously, there again, we're talking about a test that has not evolved in 30 years. Sure, the lab results are better and we've gotten better at that, but is there not a better way? I don't know what that way is, but my challenge to you would be let's look at that.
Yeah.
Now, that's not Livestrong's focus. Prevention is not Livestrong's focus. You're listening to Suzanne's passion. My passion for this particular piece of cancer and women's health in general. We really have this great opportunity in tech to come into cancer in the cancer space, not just looking at how to cure it. Let's think about something else. And I say that because if you can mitigate the side effects, if you can mitigate the damage that cancer does, what if it doesn't matter if we have a cure or not?
Yeah.
Look at AIDS. Look at AIDS and HIV.
Oh, yes.
Right?
I never thought about that. Yeah. What if you can just keep your tumor quiet? Like, all right, I got a tumor, but like I take this pill every day and now
they cut out what they could and then they somehow encapsulated it and it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
What if they did that?
Whoa. Well, I think potentially you're proposing this because there are so many bad side effects of treatments for cancer, right? So tell us about what are the like lifelong or, next to your side effects that women specifically have to deal with after they, get into remission and all of a sudden everyone around them is like, you're a survivor. This is great.
You're fine.
And their quality of life probably actually isn't that great. So tell us about that.
Absolutely. There's several things. The thing that we hear about most here at Livestrong, a few things. We hear about neuropathy. This isn't necessarily, female focused, but some of the drugs that women take for our specific types of cancer do tend to cause neuropathy. And then lymphedema, which is debilitating for women in that it disforms you, right? So weight is always an issue, right? Body size, how do we look? We're always most of us, even if we say we love exactly who we are right now, imagine yourself gaining 10 pounds of water and you can't make it stop.
Yeah.
That's what can happen. So your lymphatic system becomes disabled and starts working incorrectly, and it doesn't get rid of water the way that healthy lymphatic systems do. And so it retains water. And so you aren't doing anything wrong. You aren't eating bad. You're not exercising, but now people are looking at you going, you're not healthy. So like and I say that because it's from a psychological perspective and not just a physical perspective. One, it's super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Literally, I have a friend of mine who's metastatic, and she drains 4 or 5 pounds of fluid every single day from her body.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is a real thing.
Yeah.
Neuropathy is also hard because it usually affects extremities. So like suddenly you just can't feel your feet, or you can't feel the tips of your fingers anymore. Okay. And that changes your ability to write or to walk with grace, or, so your legs work, but you can't feel your feet. So your gait changes.
Okay.
So that can change things. When we think about females or women specifically, one of the biggest thing that comes to mind for us is fertility. So chemotherapy and radiation can often completely destroy a woman's ability to have a child. At Livestrong, we are passionate about this side effect. Yeah. And we've created a network of over 730 clinics across the country that discount their services to women. So if you were diagnosed with cancer today, and let's say you're 25 years old, or you're 14, or even 32, and you haven't had kids, or you think you might want to have more, then you've got only from the time you just heard that news until your first treatment to do something about it. So when we talk about financial impact of cancer, it's massive, and fertility is one of those big costs, right? Yeah. So we put this network together. When you come into the fertility network at Livestrong, you get a discount for those services. And then we've also partnered with EMD Serono. EMD Serono is a pharmaceutical company that manufactures those IVF drugs and those drugs that you need in order to be able to capture the eggs, or to harvest the eggs to freeze so that you can use them later. And they provide those drugs for free. Wow. This is a savings of literally thousands and thousands of dollars. Yeah. So we get pictures of babies almost every month from families who are able, 2 or 3 years after cancer, their cancer has been treated and their body is healthy. Now they're able to use those eggs that were frozen, and the woman is able to carry that child, her own child. But the eggs were safe.
So the eggs are damaged from the chemo radiation because they just get mutated or they die?
Correct. Yeah. Yes. Okay. All of those things. Yeah. All those things.
Also,
and so they can,
radiation causes a lot of scar tissue, right? So that's like what our co-founder works on, Dr. Julie she's working on the vaginal stent because there's so much scarring that happens during radiation. Is that something that affects fertility?
Absolutely. It affects fertility. If you can't have intercourse, you absolutely are not having a child.
Yeah, that's
You know,
if you don't know about this, we have some sex ed episodes.
Yeah. Yes.
Earlier.
Yes. Yeah. We won't go all the way down that road, but
Yeah.
it's definitely a barrier to success in this particular case. And so it's really important that women and, you know, oncologists are great about this, but they're definitely telling these women and those endocrinologists, hey, you are of childbearing age. If you think you want to have a kid, you need to do something about this right now.
Yeah.
It's also for the guy too. So let's say you just married this guy, or you know, you're a partner, a couple, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have a child and he gets cancer. Same thing, right? Your eggs are going to be fine, but his little guys, not so much.
Yeah.
So we also offer, it's the same program for men as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So we'll freeze his eggs and also his partner, or his sperm and also his partner's eggs, so that they have this opportunity, even if, because we don't know what's going to happen with either partner, right? You can't know that. So in the program, we make sure that both partners are able to have fertility treatments so that they can have kids.
So if a woman has breast cancer, she has treatment, she saves her eggs, freezes her eggs through Livestrong's help.
Yes.
She's in remission, and then she wants to have a kid, but can she breastfeed? If she didn't get like a mastectomy, she has her breast, can she still breastfeed? Or if she did get a mastectomy, like what are the choices there for her?
Yeah, it really depends. It depends on what they've had to do surgically, and what type of breast cancer she had, and did it affect both sides? Did they have to remove the nipple or not? Obviously, if the nipple is removed, then that's not an option for her anymore.
Yeah.
Even if she didn't have to have a mastectomy, sometimes there's a lumpectomy that, depending on the type of cancer, if it invades the milk ducts, then that's not going to work out, right?
Yeah. The plumbing system might be there, but there's no faucet, right?
Correct. Correct. The faucet will be shut off.
Yeah.
The physicians will shut the faucet off. No faucet happening. Even if the faucet was on, that canal system was not gonna work.
Done. Yeah.
So there's a possibility, of course, if you want to breastfeed on the other side, and that other breast wasn't affected. And this sometimes impacts the reason why some women choose only, you know, if you have breast cancer, let's say just on one breast, they're just going to have the not a bilateral, right? They're just going to take the one instead of the other if breastfeeding is something that's important to them.
And do you think oncologists really go through all of this with women beforehand? Like if it's a 13-year-old girl, she's probably not thinking about fertility. Do doctors bring this up to 13-year-old girls? Like,
so they do, but not all of them. So that's another opportunity, I think, for us as women to think about our daughters and our friends' daughters and our kids. Pediatric oncologists are very cognizant of long-term and long-lasting effects of cancer on these kids. Because when you have cancer, just because treatment is over does not mean you are normal. You are not back to the way you were before. There's a lot of long-lasting side effects, especially when you talk about kids, or even when you're not. So if we talk about glioblastoma, which is brain cancer, it's the worst kind. I lost my friend Sean in March. She lost her battle. She was an entrepreneur, mother of two, amazing, beautiful human being. But she had brain cancer that just, it doesn't matter. They couldn't solve that problem, right?
Yeah.
Because it invades your frontal lobe. But the side effects from her treatment was that she could not drive. Even if they had cured her, which was not ever going to be a possibility, because this is not a cancer that, I think the survival rate is like 1% or 3%. It's miserable. She wasn't ever going to be able to drive again. When we talk about quality of life, she was 49 years old, and you're telling me she can't drive? Like, what does that do to you when you talk about your lack of mobility and that's a quality of life issue. And so that's a real thing for all cancer patients, is what else is happening to your body. So as a child, there's I know a young boy, his name is Jack, and he was diagnosed eventually with a similar type of brain cancer, but he was 6. What was happening to him is that he started having seizures, and those seizures damaged his frontal lobe to the point of no return. And so today, as a 21-year-old, he'll never live on his own. He has a lot of special needs.
Yeah.
He will not, what he was before that tumor happened is not who he is today. Yeah. And that happens to a lot of cancer patients, people who have cancer as part of their journey. Another thing that's another side effect that people don't often think about is PTSD.
Oh, yes.
So I'll, if you know anybody who's a little bit of a hypochondriac, you can use them as this example, right? I think we all have that friend. Do you have that friend? You're like, no, you're not dying today. Like it's a hangnail. It's an ingrown hair, like you're fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Right. But imagine that you've had cancer and now you have a cough. Now your right leg hurts. Now your finger is blue, like you name it. And what often happens for cancer survivors or people who've come through a cancer journey is that everything that's wrong with them ever, they think, is this cancer?
Wow. I never thought about that.
Is it back?
Yes.
This also happens to caregivers as well, not just of pediatric cancer patients, but imagine your spouse or your mother or your father. Yeah. And every time they complain about something or you notice something that feels different or off, your first go-to is that cancer.
Yes. Wow.
So PTSD is trauma. We call it secondary trauma. PTSD is just the term I think I like to use because I think everybody understands what that means.
Yes.
Secondary trauma is probably the cleaner term or the more correct, clinically correct term, but I will always default and say I'm not a physician nor am I a psychologist. Yeah. So I get to get it wrong on occasion, but that is a real thing and it absolutely happens.
And so what is Livestrong doing to support that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's that mental health aspect that's so important. So currently we've got a couple things. One, we're funding a solution that has been created by an organization out of Denver, Colorado called Vital Hearts. Vital Hearts is actually a secondary trauma education program for healthcare providers in the oncology field. So they go to hospitals and clinics and they train healthcare providers who watch people go through this every single day. This is what they do for a living and they suffer from that emotionally. And they teach them how to deal and how to manage that. And then within themselves and also how to help their patients with that same thing. Another solution that we're funding is through an organization called Wonders and Worries. This is an organization that we actually had a hand in starting many years ago. They were based here in Texas, but now they're throughout the country. I'm very proud of what they do. They are focused on children of parents or siblings who have cancer, again, around this PTSD, depression, grief, and coping mechanisms. So Wonders and Worries is a program that is connecting these kids or youth, young adults, to resources, teaching them how to cope, teaching them what to do next, how to think, how to feel, and really deal with that. Yeah. We're really looking forward to, we also have funded in the past and continue to work with an organization called the Flatwater Foundation. Flatwater is, I love Mark, the CEO and founder. I love this story. He created Flatwater Foundation with his dad when his dad was diagnosed with cancer, but his father always talked about that calm that he would feel and that he just missed that. And when everything was right, it was like flat water. And that's why it's called the Flatwater Foundation. So Flatwater Foundation actually provides free therapy for cancer patients and their families.
Oh my God.
Zero cost to them. So they've created a network of therapists, psychologists, and psychiatrists around the country that reduce their rates, and then Flatwater pays those fees for patients and their families to be able to go and find some relief there.
Yeah, so often we put mental health as like the back burner, but it is the front burner.
It should be. Actually. It's the front burner.
Yeah.
I tell you what, you leave that burner on and we've got trouble.
Yeah.
We have trouble.
Suzanne, I could literally talk to you all day, but I want to get to our last two questions that our listeners love. This first one, you kind of gave us an answer already, but let's see if you have any more. Mm-hmm. If someone wanted to innovate in women's health and wellness, what's an area that still needs innovating? You said mammograms earlier, so mammograms, y'all, innovate it. What else?
Yeah, mammograms are a big one. Let's figure that out. What else? I think in
Pap smear could use some
Pap smear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Pap smear could use some updating. And the idea that we only have to get them now every other year, like, are you sure? Does that make me feel really good? I don't know about all that. Yeah. So I think that there might be some opportunity there. And then within healthcare, not cancer specific, maternal morbidity is a problem. Yeah. And it's not okay. There are women who lose their lives every day when they give birth, and there is no reason for that. No. Not in this country, not in any country, but if we're going to talk about the United States specifically, this is a country that deserves to have its women raise those children, and everybody deserves their mom in whatever capacity she can be there for them in. Yeah.
And the fact that the mortality rate is double for Black women compared to white women, and triple for Hispanic women.
Hispanic women
is like beyond.
It's completely unacceptable. It's unacceptable, and there's no good reason for it. The reasons for it can be solved, and maybe that's my next mission. But right now, yes. But that's how you can definitely. There needs to be some innovation there. Somebody needs to really do some I call it what if thinking. We really need to do some what if thinking on that.
Totally. And our last question is, what do you think the women's health and wellness industry as a whole needs the most right now in order to be successful and move forward?
I'm going to just say that this, in my opinion, applies to everything. We need more mentors like you. We need more women to open the door. We need to be kind to one another and not competitive with one another. We need to be collaborative instead of competitive, and to say, hey, you know what? I know we're in the same space, and I know we're kind of gunning for the same thing. But what if we put that competitive nature of who we are as women aside, because we've all had to fight really hard to get where we are. Yeah. The glass ceiling, I'm sitting behind a glass wall. For those of you who can see me, I literally have glass within arm shot, but the glass ceiling is a real thing. Yeah. And my belief when we talk about success in women's healthcare or any industry is we have to be willing to mentor one another actively without concern for our own success. Yes. We have to do a better job of treating one another well. And I really believe that 98% of women have this caregiver gene. It's in us. I just don't see any other way. Yeah. And unfortunately, sometimes society and what we've had to do to become successful, we've had to shelve that. We've had to shelve it, and we start acting, which is completely understandable. I've done it myself. We've all done it. We sit at a table full of amazing men, but we have to play by their rules. And we start adapting their rules in the way that they work. And we all know that men are from Mars. So it's time for us to retake our planet, right? And say, you know what? I'm proud to be a woman from Venus. Yeah. And let's get together on this.
Here's our rule book. right?
Here's
Rule
our
book
rule
of
book.
collaboration. It's a rule book that
Absolutely.
everyone can win. You know, it's a rule
Everyone
book.
can
Yeah.
win. We don't always have to like one another, because that's not what it is either. You know,
Yes,
I
yes.
like you, but I don't like every woman I ever meet, you know, but
I
it's okay. We don't have to like everybody, but
yeah.
we do. I believe we have a responsibility as women to hold one another up. And especially when we talk about women of color,
Mm-hmm.
because as hard as myself, a white woman, has had, you've had, you know what? I just can't even imagine the challenges,
Yeah,
right? So we need to hold our, all of our sisters up, no
yeah.
matter where they came from, what they look like,
Yes.
or what their journey is, and say, hey, pay attention. We're
I-
pretty cool. We're
I-
pretty cool people.
We are. So there's actually something I saw on LinkedIn that I'd love to share with our listeners real quick. It was a post of how can we help our, you know, women of color in our community to like rise up. And so this woman shared on her LinkedIn an email that I guess she got invited to speak on this panel. And she responded saying, hey, I've noticed this panel only has Caucasian individuals. I would like to, you know, not take this and introduce you to a few people of color that I think would also do a fantastic job. And I was like, that is championing people of color, you know, like just hoping that the program managers do it, you know, like I guess you can all hope and pressure them, but if you like down to it, surrender your seat, you'll be invited on another panel. Doesn't need to be your voice every single time, right? Yeah.
I really love that. And you know what? I love the fact that she took action. She didn't just say, invite some other people.
She said, let me intro you. Yeah.
Let me intro you. And this is who I'm thinking would be better than me.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I think we owe it to one another. And we'll solve a whole lot of problems.
Whew, Suzanne, so good. This is awesome. I cannot wait. Let's just be friends, please.
100%.
Can't wait to socially distance coffee with you.
Yes.
Livestrong, so inspiring. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And thanks for everything that you guys do. All of you listening out there who are brave. You're very brave. And keep it up. If there's anything I can do to help you in your journey, please reach out. Let me know.